Hello there. I want to talk to you today about the crisis of the modern age. This is a broad overview of my thoughts. There is a vision I have for the world which can remedy this. My previous entries being conversations about media subject matter. This is a new direction for my work. It is important to establish that I am an artist, and my work here is a means of exposing my artwork to a larger audience. I am a painter, and I will be showcasing my paintings from time to time. My goal here is to share my vision of an ideal world. A world which embraces Christian Socialism and mid-century American exceptionalism. I first want to address this rot in our culture. A society so divided, so devoid of meaning and purpose, that I challenge anyone to argue we are not in crisis. It was not always this way. There was a time when this country was optimistic and a leader of the Western world in democracy, opportunity, wealth, education, and the sciences. Even in the arts, now we are essentially a police state, a democracy in name only, with a dying middle class, and our education and science has become exclusive to the rich. Whatever our nation is transforming into is a horrifying mockery of our past greatness, and a bastardization of all the values we once held dear. In search of the solution, let us first address our past. The middle of the 20th century was a glorious time for our nation. We came out of the Great Depression, a nation which pushed back the powers of industry. Out of the ashes and rubble of World War II, America triumphed as a beacon of the Western world. A burgeoning middle class redefined our society, and our nation led the world as the preeminent superpower. The fashions were dignified. Men wore suits, women wore dresses. The art was modernist. The music was comforting and uplifting. Everyone was pulling in the same direction. However, we were not perfect. With this era of conformity came paranoia of anything foreign, particularly communism. Under this threat of communism, American citizens were unfairly prosecuted. Foreign governments were overthrown. The intelligence agencies were given unprecedented power. The fear of nuclear war was ever present. This era of post-war America, the glory days, was at its peak between 1957 and 1963, or from the launch of the Sputnik to the death of Kennedy, what I call the Be My Baby era. This 6-year period is the greatest time of American history, in my opinion. Then Kennedy was killed, and all was lost. Our society has been going downhill ever since. After the death of Kennedy, the baby boomers came along and turned our entire way of life upside down. They had good music, but what has become of our nation since they took power? I will tell you. 4 decades of neoliberalism and a postmodern hellscape. These same people are in power today, whether Clinton, Bush, Trump, or Biden. Their grip on power has seen 2 successive generations living worse lives than the baby boomers. Generation X and the millennials have spent their lives under the boot heel of the baby boomers in power. Even baby boomers without power are not innocent. They grew up propagandized by the media to become the first consumer generation. They had inherited a great society, voted for neoliberalism for 4 decades, and are leaving us a crumbling culture with a labor force stricken with outsourcing, stagnant wages, and anti-union activity. Their silent majority voted for Reagan overwhelmingly, while their vocal minority sought to upturn every value and form of cultural cohesion that made America great. The infrastructure, institutions, schools, jobs, and rights which they inherited are being bequeathed upon subsequent generations utterly derelict. A truly revolutionary generation in all the wrong ways. Now is our chance to make it right. We have the power, no, the duty, to correct the course of this sinking ship. Christian socialism is my answer. We must not merely resign to our fates, subjugated by the me generation and the corporate interests that guided their greed. For it is not truly a demographic which holds the blame, but the entrenched corporatocracy which rules us, a cabal of corporations which by its very nature only believes in one thing, the enrichment of their shareholders. In this interest, the borders stay open, undermining the power of the American worker. The deregulation of our government has allowed unchecked immigration, both legal and illegal, to fill in jobs that organized American labor could otherwise rightfully hold. Outsourcing has allowed these corporations to take any job they can overseas at the cost of enriching other nations instead of Americans. We cannot wait around any longer for our nation to change, for our leaders to change these lax policies of trade, labor, and taxation. Our government is corrupted by the corporate money at every level. In the present, we must organize labor and rebuild strong unions in every industry. Universal unionism, a government program which provides labor representation to every worker in this nation, must be enacted. Anti-union activity must be eradicated at every level. Every company in this nation needs to be audited for such activity. A new kind of Miranda rights for workers must be signed into law. You have the right to representation in the court of law. Why should you not be guaranteed representation in the workplace? Federal minimum wage hasn't seen an increase of this paltry $7.25 an hour since 2007, must be lifted to at least $20 an hour. It's not even a question. Universal single-payer health care and free taxpayer provided free college and trade school are essential as well. Federal jobs and infrastructure programs are also a no-brainer. A New Deal, if you will. A no homeless program that is tasked with the goal of housing each and every citizen modestly in this country would be a great first step. This is the wealthiest nation on earth, and we have what can only be described as institutionalized poverty. These socialist policies were the natural next steps of the presidents Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, and Kennedy. Then it all began unraveling to the state we see it in now. This is the point when my socialist policies differ from what is considered left-wing. Christian socialism is relatively socially conservative. The very nature of revering middle 20th century American society necessitates it. We adhere to the dogmas of Western values. Christianity, not secularism. Labor rights, not gender and minority rights. A tight grip on the cohesive culture that made us a wealthy superpower, not the decadence and division that characterizing our collapse. We may not agree on everything with our leftist socialist compatriots, but our economics unify us. As corporate corruption continues to dominate the centrist policy of both conservative and liberal factions, they push all reasonable Americans to the fringe of the left and the right. Let us not allow further division of our populism on social issues. That that plays right into the hands of our oppressors. We must come full circle to unite against a common foe. That is how true change happens. We are living in a populist age now, but it is hardly reflecting in our politics. Bernie Sanders and the Justice Democrats have been a tremendous disappointment. Now they merely provide a positive image for those hungry for change, all while falling in line for the establishment Democrats. Donald Trump won the presidency on a plethora of populist rhetoric, only to pass the biggest tax cut for the rich that we have ever seen. The populist cause is dead in the water without a real leader. It is time to admit that the chance for change has passed us, and it may be some years before real political action comes around. Absent of leadership, we will fail. This cause will be explored at greater length in future videos and touch on current events as they transpire. Thanks for listening.